19, which is International Men's Health Day. Well, it's International Men's Day and it's focused around men's mental health. So I just thought I'd be popping in during the week just to give a couple of tips around health advice in general and especially the mental health of men, and to talk about a session that we're running on Friday in relation to the evolution of male leadership. And fundamentally, there is some real concern out there that to be a man is almost like being a hindrance in leadership circles. The world is changing. It's really inclusive. It should be inclusive. And we should be embracing inclusion and diversity. And we're going to talk about how men can utilize um, some of the new characteristics that are required in the workplace to make sure that they still stand a good chance of getting success. So that's happening this Friday, and you should be able to see the link in the comments of wherever you're watching this video. Now, today we're talking very briefly about the 7 pillars for men's mental health. So there's some real key aspects here that, and fundamentally, this is good advice for everyone. But the focus this week is on men's mental health. Now, I'm not here to share stats. I'm not here to share any sort of government figures in relation to mental health, but the stats are really quite frightening when it comes to things like suicide with men. So it really is something that we need to focus on, and we need to be able to embrace opportunities to increase our awareness. But when it comes to the everyday existence, our everyday living, our everyday joy of life that we should have, how we manage things like stress, how well we socialize, how well we sleep, how much exercise do we get, and how we think and what we eat are all important for us to ensure our own mental well-being. So let's have a look at some of those things. So the 7 pillars: physical exercise, um, reducing our health risks is number 2. Number 3 is food and nutrition. Number 4 is our own medical health. Number 5 is sleep and relaxation. Number 6 is mental fitness. And I'll talk briefly about each one of those. And of course, number 7 is social interaction. And unfortunately, the COVID situation has created many lonely people in the world, not just men. I acknowledge that. So there is a real disconnect at the moment with a large proportion of the population, and we need to, as a community and people focused on helping and supporting each other, we should be really trying to break through in those particular regards. So let's look at physical exercise. We know we need to keep moving. People that exercise on a regular basis decrease their risks in so many aspects of potential health issues. It helps improve our memory. It increases our blood flow. It also causes chemical changes in our brains that boost thinking and can almost be drug-like when we hit those. You've probably heard of people hitting the wall in marathons and whatnot, and then breaking through it and having this sense of euphoria. So exercise prolongs our life, reduces the risk of heart disease. It maximizes the potential that we have for better sleep. It helps keep our weight in some sense of control, and it improves our mood. So moving our body is closely linked to the mindset that we have. So review, reflect, and think about, what is it that I need to do? And this isn't about joining a 45-minute high-intensity exercise session today if you haven't been doing that for the last 2 years, because all that's going to do is cause pain, anguish, and you won't go back tomorrow. But think about it as movement. So what is it that I can do today? Can I walk to the end of the street? A person in my network recently told me that they've taken up running again. And at the moment, all they're doing is running to the end of the street and back. It's a long street, but they're running to the end of the street and back because they know that if they go too hard too early, that can create injury. So think about physical exercise and think about getting moving. Number 2 is reducing the risks that we have for mental health conditions. So we can't always avoid things like stress and pressure in our lives. However, there are things that we can do to reduce the risk factors for such diagnosis. For one, avoiding and dealing with chronic stress, for example, can help reduce the risks of depression and anxiety. And one of the best ways that we can do this is to develop our own coping skills for dealing with life's problems. Once again, I recall a manager of mine who had undergone a physical transformation. He'd lost some weight. And he talked about openly to the group of managers that he led how one of the biggest things that he still struggles with was his ability to cope, his ability to develop those coping skills that we all need in our lives. And that he was still too prone to fall back into the old methods of coping, like grabbing a couple of mates and heading to the pub and having far too many drinks, those sorts of things. And he was still looking and assessing at how he can continue to build coping skills that would enable him to maintain the transformation that he'd undertaken. All of those coping skills help us with mental health, all of those. I often talk about preparing before the need. So it's like it's a sporting event. You want to train before the game, because the more training we do, the more preparation we have for whatever's going to happen within the game. And it's like life. We need to prepare. We need to train. Number 3 is food and nutrition. I'm not going to harp on you around food and nutrition, other than the fact that we should be making better choices. There's a real adage of we are what we eat. And if that case, I'm probably going to look like a 4 and 20 meat pie because I just love the 4 and 20 meat pies. But I do know I can't eat them every day. I do know that. And so I don't eat them every day. We do need to make better choices. And often the food that we eat will help us maintain a healthy mind state. The food that is high in antioxidants, for example, is really important to have within our daily diet. Often I'll just grab a handful of almonds, for example, when fundamentally my mind is saying I need a pick-me-up, I need a pick-me-up. I'll go look for a handful of almonds or something that's got like that, as opposed to looking for a sweet or a piece of apple pie or a lamington or something, which is what unfortunately a lot of people grab. I'll grab a handful of almonds and that'll tide me over until my next meal. So we need to make better choices in food and nutrition. The next thing that number 4 is medical health. Now, it makes sense nowadays to reduce the risks. And we all know things like obesity, diabetes are largely driven through our diet. There is some genetic factors, of course. But for many people that have looking at themselves and they consider maybe that they're overweight, health and the food they eat and the diet. But it also brings up things like cholesterol, which is largely diet driven, although there is some genetic risks as well that we know about. But smoking, high levels of drinking, those sorts of things are really not advantageous to living a good, healthy, fit life, especially within our mind, within our mental well-being. So take control of those risks. Now, I'm not saying you need to abstain. Not at all. What I am saying is take control of your risks. So if you smoke less. If you drink a little less. Those sorts of things. That's within our control. Take some control. And as you build discipline in that, it will actually improve your things like resilience and persistence and striving to goals. Number 5 is one that we can all do better: sleep and relaxation. Our brain functions so much better when we're well rested. Sleeping should energize, it should improve our immune system, it should enhance our mood, and fundamentally, it restarts and refreshes the brain. So, if you have had a history of failure to sleep well, that may be caused by another condition. So, go get it checked out. Don't just accept the fact that you don't sleep well. It could be sleep apnea. It could be a range of things that are stopping you from actually resting the way that you should be. We all know how we felt after a bad night's sleep. So, a good night's sleep is something that we should be intentional about, whatever that looks like for you. So, sleep better, because it really does help us reduce our stress levels. And if you are having trouble sleeping, try things like mindfulness techniques or meditation techniques, because that helps reduce that turmoil, that noise that we have going around inside our mind, and provide some really good practices for when it's time to actually go to bed. Number 6, mental fitness. Once again, there's a real adage here of what we feed into our brain is what our brain becomes. So if we're challenging and stretching and stimulating our mind, it keeps it fresh. But if we're feeding it the same old garbage every day, like sitting on a couch watching, The Simpsons, or now, don't get me wrong, I love The Simpsons, but I've never sat there for a full day watching them. So we really need to be mindful of what we feed into our brain. Stretch it, learn, grow. Those sorts of things are really important for us. So challenge, get some mind challenges. Instead of just mindlessly scrolling through Facebook, get some mind challenging games. Get some of those twisting, those things that are going to stretch your mental capacity, because the more we use it, the more we hold on to it. So really, that's a incredibly important aspect for, once again, just everyone. And the last one that we'll touch on is social interaction. And we know that people who have social interaction, or more social interaction, actually enjoy better brain health. So we need to remain socially connected. It's part of the human condition. It's part of the human psyche. Remain socially connected. And when we are connected with people in a positive sense, once again, we're talking about releases of chemicals within our brain that actually should be part of what we're doing. Whether it's a sense of dopamine or some of the ones that calm us down. Social connection continues to build better quality brain health for each and every one of us. Engaging in a conversation that actually has some meaning, instead of just the mindless stuff that we seem to do as we go on autopilot when we're talking to people. So socially connected is the 7th pillar, and it's probably one of the most important, especially in the world that we know today. Let me just go through those 5 again. Physical exercise, get moving, reducing the risk for your mental conditions, make the right choices around some of those bad choices that you're currently making. Food and nutrition is obviously incredibly important, and make sure that, it has, as again, I'm not saying don't be a wowser. I'm not saying that, but make the right choices in terms of how much and how often. Make sure we're looking after our medical health and those medical risks that we talked about. Sleep and relaxation should be part of our intention and our plan and our strategy each and every day to get the most out of us. Don't listen to the gurus that say you can survive on 3 hours sleep. What good night's sleep to you is your personal good night's sleep. So just because someone believes that they can function on 3 hours, that's great. That's awesome. I reckon they could probably function better on 5 hours. So sleep is personal. It's your choice, but make sure it's part of your daily plan. mental fitness. So make sure you're challenging your brain, you're feeding your brain, the right things. If you feed it mush, it'll become mush. And that's really important to take on board. And let's make sure we're remaining socially connected. We're engaging in conversation. It's just not mindless drivel. We're not just going through the motions. We need to engage with people. We need to be socially connected. You'll see the link for the Men's Evolution in Leadership session that we're running on Friday. It's 1 hour out of your day, and fundamentally, this could give you the leap that you're wanting to get more satisfaction, more significant, more success in your leadership and your business. Hope you've taken a couple of little tips away from today. I'll see you all again tomorrow. We'll talk then. Bye.